Whether you know his name or not, chances are you've seen George Morrison's art in public, in galleries, or on U.S. postage stamps. But in just 2 days, Morrison's work will be featured on a whole new level as he receives his first solo exhibition at the world-renowned Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. It's an honor Morrison didn't live to see, but as Ken Erdahl reports, it comes at a time when his work and legacy are more relevant than ever.
The work of artist George Morrison has quietly shaped the Twin Cities landscape for decades.
When I was a kid, I always marveled at the feather design on the side of the American Indian Center over on Franklin Avenue. And when I started teaching at the University of Minnesota, I liked to visit his wood collage over here in the law school. It's here for everybody to enjoy.
Professor Brenda Child recently became director of the U of M's new George Morrison Center for Indigenous Arts, which celebrates his work.
This is very beautiful.
And his impact on the indigenous art landscape.
I like to bring students here because they see different things. They see his famous horizon line when they look at it.
That horizon line not only runs through most of Morrison's career-defining work, it also inspired it.
I get that from my childhood. That's how you would say.
Breond Morrison.
Yes, I get that from my childhood.
Says his father's work was shaped by this landscape, the Grand Portage Indian Reservation along Lake Superior.
My grandfather's grandfather walked on this beach.
And now, 25 years after Morrison died here, his life's work will be celebrated far beyond this horizon.
I just like to tell people that there's an Ojibwe artist with a big show in New York City.
In the magical city, George Morrison's New York, the Met shines an international spotlight on Morrison's time away from Minnesota, attending the city's Art Students League and his abstract expressionist works that propelled the movement through the 1940s, 50s, and beyond.
He was established. He had over 40 one-man shows by the time I was born in 1961.
He painted with artists like William de Kooning, Jackson Pollock, Franz Klein, and we've seen exhibits that he did in New York with those artists.
But Robert Snell, co-owner of Revere Auctions in St. Paul, has never seen Morrison's work more appreciated than it is right now.
He has finally kind of gotten his due. Every single time we have a work by George Morrison, we get inquiries about it from all over the world.
And much of it can be found in museums right here. The Met's curator spent years working with the Minnesota Museum of American Art in St. Paul, which contributed 12 pieces and is still home to the biggest collection of Morrison's work.
We have to kind of realize and appreciate in Minnesota that he's not just a local guy who's done well, but he is in fact a leader in those art movements.
To be an artist, you have your idea, you make it, and you stand firm.
And he later led the movement back to familiar ground.
This is a sidewalk, granite inlay into the Nicollet Mall.
Because we're surrounded by his public art, in some ways we take it for granted.
Morrison returned to Minnesota in 1970 to teach art and American Indian Studies at the U of M. And a few years later, he built a cabin and studio back on the reservation.
I live with my dad's paintings all around me.
To reconnect with the horizon that started it all.
These are unfinished works that I found, even though it's unfinished. I love it.
He was very influenced by Gitche-Gumee. He was obsessed with Lake Superior.
He painted these in Grand Portage. These really showcase Morrison's talent as an artist.
It's no wonder why demand for those small but intricately layered horizon paintings is now sky high.
5 or 6 years ago at auction, these used to go for around $8,000 to $12,000. Today, we're looking at $30,000 to $50,000.
That may be. But Breond says the story behind them,
and he even talked about it,
is priceless.
My father was sick, and my mother got these boards so he could work and paint in bed. And she got all the paints for him, and he did it. And he started painting from that bed right up there.
And soon, his father's big exhibition will culminate with some of those little paintings from this very place.
I'm just happy for him. It's extraordinary to have his work shown there. It's a pinnacle it's a wonder, And I'm sorry, just everything, the examples that he left behind and the way he lived his life. He was a good man.
A man who changed multiple landscapes
It was his dream to come back home.
without losing sight of his horizon.
Plain and simple, the work itself is of such a high quality that it lasts. It is part of history now.
It certainly is. Morrison's exhibit will open at the Met this Thursday and continue through May of next year. Briand says he plans to travel out in September for a special opening reception along with his mother, Hazel Belvo, an accomplished artist herself who is now in her 90s. So you talk about timing for something like this and this kind of recognition.
Well, to be at the Met is extraordinary, but it sounds like he at least knew he had success before he passed away. He was a successful artist. Sometimes it doesn't happen until well after death. But I love that you showed those pieces at the U of M and in the sidewalk in Minneapolis. I had no idea.
Yeah, they're all around us. Even if you didn't know his name, you can see them so many
Yeah.
different places. And we're sharing some of those locations where you can find them along with the story on KARE11.com.
Oh, learned so much. Really loved it. Thanks so much,
Absolutely.
Kent.